Our next presentation is actually going to be a panel discussion up here on the stage. So please, if I can welcome back to the stage, our moderators today will be Kat and Miriam, and our panelists will be Dr. Rubalcava, Doreen, and please welcome to the stage Jessica Conkle. Before you guys do that, let me just introduce Jessica Conkle. She's, I'm giving you a little exercise, that's what it is. Jessica Conkle is the Director of Curriculum and Instructional Services Division at LA County Office of Ed. She works as part of an administrative team to oversee technical support and professional learning for Los Angeles County's LEAs, with dedicated focus on STEM and health-related content areas. As a former elementary principal and junior high vice principal, Jessica has improved instructional programs, supported teacher development, and fostered strong collaborative relationships with families and the community. I'm hearing a theme: fostering relationships, community, right? All right, please welcome everyone to the panel.
Is this thing on? Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our panel discussion. First question for Bachelorette number 3. Oh, wait, we're off the dating theme, right? Okay. This question is for Doreen. I told her I was going to surprise her with a question. Oh, I'm just kidding. Doreen, you have been doing this work for some time. What are some key lessons you've learned from your experience that you'd be willing to share with us?
Thank you for that very surprising question. Now, first I want to acknowledge that all of you in this room could be up here sharing your experience, your insights. So I just really want to recognize that. If you heard earlier when I was sharing about all the funding sources, I started at the Department of Education at Orange County Department of Ed 20 plus years ago. And I started on a nutrition grant. So my experience was very much immersed in nutrition education, physical activity promotion. And then later when the local school wellness policy mandate came out, that was like a big part of my role. And really, I feel very strongly, well, my role evolved over time. So now I oversee, I still continue to work in that area, but I also oversee things like health education, family and community engagement, our alcohol, tobacco, and other drug prevention funds, and other fun, activities and projects, other work is assigned. But I'm saying that because I think my biggest learning is trying to bring to life what we mean when we say integrated support services or integrated student support services or integrated system of support. Like, what does that actually mean? Because collaboration is not always integrated. I think we've all had experience with collaboration where it's just like, oh, we come together because I have something I need to get done and you have something that you need, and then we just do it. And then that might not necessarily always get sustained. So really thinking about what does integration mean and how can integration be the key to our sustained efforts? And how many of you all are nutrition services in the room? Okay, awesome. I think we had a few teachers. Do we have teachers in the room? We had a few people. Excellent. Do we have administrators, principals, AP, superintendents? This is awesome. That is wonderful. Do we have anybody from student support services? Overseeing any of the mental health professionals-ish? I like this one, a little bit. Okay, great. Okay, great. That big screen is blocking half of that table, but I'm with you. Okay. Do we have anybody that's overseeing or involved in any of the community schools work? Okay, we got 1, 2, wonderful. Okay, so we're a pretty diverse room, right? And I think what I would really love to talk a little bit about or advocate for or have it be our collective call to action is how could we become more curious about other people's work and then have a better understanding of what they do so that we could be better at teaching them about what we do. So for example, for our student support services, for our mental health professionals, I asked to attend one of the meetings where we bring together all of our counselors, the folks who are leading the charge with a lot of the mental health work. And my goal was really, I wanted to present a little bit about, first I started with the whole like brain-gut axis, right? And we talked a little bit about the microbiome and how nutrition plays such a huge role when it comes to your mood, anxiety, risk for depression, and connected it to their work and what they do and why it should matter. And then I slowly shifted to school meals and really shifted to what has their role been in advocating for school meals. Are they the adult on campus that's like, yeah, I know the food is terrible? What? So we just finished, right? I got them to all agree nutrition is very important. And nutrition and whether or not your students have had food since yesterday matters to their mental health, to their behavior. It's actually impacting your workload. It's impacting what you do on a daily basis. So if that's the case, what's the opportunity for you to be an advocate for a completely different program? But you are an advocate for nutrition and for nutrition services. You have to be an advocate for school meals. So when a student comes to you, part of your question should be, when did you eat last? So they just had a behavioral issue or they're feeling really anxious or whatever the case may be. One of the questions that should be asked is, when did you eat last? And then just like we tell our teachers, you should know what resources are available to you on campus before you talk to students about things like suicide prevention or before you talk to students about anything related to substance use. Know who's available on campus so that you can make that handoff if students need it. Do our counselors and mental health professionals know to promote school meals? Know to talk to students about school meals? Know to advocate for why breakfast is important? So I'm feeling very, very passionate about what that integration looks like. And really in the spirit of what we're all talking about, that's how you build relationships. It's like a face to the work. And when you start by being curious about what they do, what their work is, what their priorities are, then because you're all awesome at what you do, and obviously you're in this room, so you're champions for wellness, then you're making that explicit connection for them for how your wellness priorities and what you want them to support is connected to what they want too. And then all of a sudden that relationship, that person, they'll think twice if they want to talk crap about the school lunch the next day because of you. Right? So we need to build that connection, right? And they need to have a better understanding of how school meals even work and the fact that they are very nutritious. So we have nutrition guidelines and so on and so forth. That could come. And the same thing, I could say that for any of the other programs, community schools, Kat and her staff well-being work, community school managers and coordinators a lot of times are her point person. Our family and community engagement folks, they have open the door for nutrition education in so many different ways. And in helping us recruit to have wellness committees that have families that are represented. So they can speak to what they want to see and what their kids need and really building that capacity, right? So thinking about all of those different arms. And then my last shout out is to curriculum and instruction. We have teachers in the room. Like we want to make sure that we are showing how the wellness policy, when it says nutrition education, how does that nutrition education actually build knowledge and skills of students? It actually connects to the ELA, ELD, the English language arts, the English language development. It connects to those standards. It's going to help you with literacy, overall literacy. It's going to help with speaking, listening, reading, and writing. We have a connection. How do we lean on our instruction, our curriculum and instruction to be like, hey, I have some great materials. Can you help me? What are some of my talking points to get teachers to see that this isn't an add-on, but it actually can be a part of an integrated part of their classroom day that's going to benefit them as well. Not just like you do it because you're a good person, right? Physical activity breaks, all of those different integrations. How do we lean on that? So think about your role, think about friends you haven't met yet that you might want to get to know. My gosh, we're going really heavy. I did not mean the whole so much, so much dating and
Great. Great first date.
That's a great call to action, Doreen. Thank you so much. And recognizing we have so many wellness champions in the room, we want to make sure that we're not relying on grant funds to continue this work, and we want to make it sustainable. So I would like to pose a question to Jessica as our expert in data-informed decision-making and LCAP for Los Angeles County Office of Education. Jessica, can you provide examples of how wellness initiatives can be aligned with LCFF and its emphasis on equity?
Thank you, Miriam. And from Farah to Kat to Doreen and all of our other speakers, there is a word cloud that is forming in my head. And the biggest word right now for me is integrated. And the second word is advocacy. Integrated, integration, and advocacy. And I thank you for those words, because in order for us to be advocates, we have to be armed, and I'll say armed very specifically, with the language to be able to advocate. It feels good when you walk into a room and sit with a group of parents at a lunchroom table, break bread, and talk about what the parent is proud of or the caregiver is proud of as it relates to their student. That feels really good, but you don't just go up in front of a board of education and say, hey, guess what? It felt really good. Because likely they're not going to give you the funding or the attention or the focus that you might need. And so as you don your capes and crowns and champion hats, I want you to think about LCFF. In the blue, in the blue community report for Santa Barbara County that's on your tables, page 7 does a pretty good job of walking you through what LCFF is. And so I'm not going to go into deeply about what LCFF is, but I'd like to share a couple of pieces of information to give you some background, but then also connect you with those words aligned to LCFF and your work. And I'm going to quote Doreen here. She said, connected to what they want to. Connected to what they want to. So this is one of the ways, by aligning your language when you speak about equity and LCFF, is your way of connecting your champion, your wellness champion hat with what they also want to, which is likely increased test scores, reduced chronic absenteeism, increased family and community engagement, and so forth. And so when we're aligning wellness initiatives with LCFF focus, it really does focus on equity. And it requires a strategic approach, not only integrating student well-being, but also having a keen eye on staff well-being with equitable resource allocation. So there's that resource allocation. And as LEAs, we're asked to consider how we're using budgetary resources such as base funding, supplemental and concentration funding, to respond to TK through 12th grade students and community needs. So it's not just your kiddos, it's also the community, which includes your staff and your parents, your caregivers. And so through this careful analysis, you're really trying to identify areas where there are performance gaps, and then creating plans through the continuous improvement cycle, the data-driven discussions, creating plans to address those achievement gaps, or those performance gaps, I should say. And specifically with LCFF, it calls out unduplicated pupils, which are your foster youth, English learners, and low-income students. Right? So really focusing on equity. And so I just want to outline 5 different areas where equity and the work that you do aligns very strategically. And the first I may mention, which is needs-based resource allocation and continuous improvement. So using your TSIA, your triennial assessments, all of those types of data in addition, yes, to your student achievement data, your chronic absenteeism data, but those other assessments, those research-based assessments, are so critical as you, the champion, make statements of effectiveness and statements for advocacy. We're data-driven, we're continuously monitoring in order to improve. And by using data on student attendance, behavior, academic performance, and the TSIA, the local school wellness tools that you're using, it really provides you the opportunity to make adjustments to increase equitable services. The second area I wanted to highlight is inclusive wellness programming, including addressing mental health disparities. This really speaks directly to LCFF priorities 5 and 6, which is enhancing school climate and student engagement. We heard a lot about partnerships versus relationships. And with priorities 5 and 6, we're really digging deeply into the relationships that we're building with students, their people, and your community in order to be able to increase metrics such as chronic absenteeism. Actually, we don't want to increase chronic absenteeism. We want to increase attendance rates, but you know what I mean. And so by engaging our parent partners, our caregiver partners, we're really inviting them to be partners in this continuous improvement effort. We're increasing the connections that we have with students and their community, students and their school, through equity-based conversations and connecting with the backgrounds and particular circumstances that students bring with them every day. 3 is collaborative family and community engagement. I spoke a little bit about that, so I won't languish in that area, but it speaks directly to LCFF priority 3. One thing that I wanted to say is that through these community partnerships, these family partnerships, we are inviting them to be part of the solution. We're inviting them to teach us about what is important to them. And this can be through your local school wellness activities, making pupusas with our food service, inviting families to share what is important with them. Integrating support systems. This really connects priority 3, 3, 5, and 6, which is directly connected to priority 4, LCFF priority 4, which is student achievement. So these are your ELA and math scores, eventually your science scores, and also your English Learner Progress Indicator. And this can be done through an integrated systems approach through MTSS. So it's not another thing. It's not an add-on. It's how do we leverage the systems we have, such as MTSS, PBIS, in order to be able to integrate our supports for students. And then finally, and probably one of the most important things, is staff development, which speaks directly to LCFF priority 2. We want for our staff to be able to recognize what is going on in their classrooms, what is going on the playground, what is going on in the school bus, and be able to have trauma-informed practices in their back pocket. We want them to be able to know that what resources are on campus, as Doreen was saying. We're not siloed. And this is one of the ways through staff development that we can prevent those silos or break down those silos so we can provide equitable resources and services to kiddos, alignment with LCFF.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Thank you for that comprehensive response. And this is why Jessica is our data expert for the county. Thank you so much. And we all had the opportunity to hear from Dr. Rubalcaba, and I think we all want to clone and have him as a superintendent at our district, right? And I have the pleasure of working closely both with Jessica and Dr. Rubalcaba. So question for you, Dr. Rubalcaba. You shared earlier your vision for a model school community, and that's really a WISC model in action that really prioritizes whole child health and learning. What are the most significant systemic barriers that you've encountered in moving the vision from theory to practice? And what advice do you have for many of our LEAs in the room who are trying to address similar challenges given the limited resources and funding?
Sure. Well, that's a tough one. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I got the tough one. The greatest resource is the human resource. It's the people. You can purchase curriculum, you can purchase these kits, but it's the people who ultimately implement. And because of that, sometimes the greatest inhibitor are the people. And whether they have an open growth mindset, or whether they're very fixed and like, hey, we've always done it like this, it's not broken, why are you stirring it up? Like our students, those of you who are teachers and curriculum experts know that we have to differentiate the learning for our children. Like, not every child learns the same. That's no different for the adults. So part of it is moving the adults and differentiating the experience so that they see the value. If you don't do that, the adults will shut down. But then as leaders, we're called to be risk takers as well. So I think it's really important. I really appreciated that video with the wolf. I really am going to use it like really soon. One of the things I wanted to comment on that video was, I bet you the concept of reintroducing the wolves was met with a lot of resistance. I guarantee it. Are you crazy? We're going to put predators, they're going to eat all the deer. And the deer advocates came in and say, don't you care about Rudolph? But whoever the leaders were that were bold enough to move it forward anyway, the outcomes speak for themselves, right? So I think one is being mindful that we have to move people in different ways, but sometimes you have to move people completely off the bus. And what I mean by that is you have to be courageous enough to say, this is good for kids. This is good for the adult. This is good for the community. You get your say, you don't always get your way. So when you hit that resistance, you have to be able to build momentum through some informal, sometimes parking lot conversations, breaking bread, or simply modeling and being out there with the kids. I sat and ate with the kids. And I continue to do that. And I'll stand in line and sanitize, and I do pay for my meal. Just want to make it clear. I pay for my meal. I don't expect a freebie. But that lets the nutrition services team know that I'm there and present and watching, that I care about the meals and what have you. So going back to the challenges, one, of course, is sometimes attitudes. Two, you said this earlier, Miriam, this work is too important to be left alone to grants. Grants come and go, and it's sad the day that something that's really good for kids or the organization goes away when the grant goes away. That should never happen. I'm sorry, music and the arts, health, education, life skills training, financial literacy should always be important, and it shouldn't be contingent upon a grant or philanthropy. We need to be courageous enough to say, this is so important, we will build it within our LCAP, and there are ways to do that. Or we're willing to use general fund because it's that important. If you want the test scores, the learning, the chronic absenteeism to take, to be important, fund it, support it. And I'm going to give you a perfect example. Big Alley Unified. You come in, oh, he's from Alley Unified. He's big district, right? Hot shot. And it's like, no. So now I'm in a very small district, right? And I said, hey, we need to hire this program called A2A. Once again, not a commercial, but what school innovation and attendance, what they do is they focus on automating processes to make you more efficient, generating letters around chronic absenteeism, housing the data in one place. Roughly a $40,000 investment for my size of a district. In 1 year, we increased attendance by 2%, average daily attendance, and here's the kicker, reduced chronic absenteeism from 31% to 19%, okay? Now, what does that mean? That means there were more students in the classroom learning. If they're at home, we can't teach them. What does that mean? Our approach, because we automated the processes of like mail merge and labor that takes a lot of time, instead of doing all this clerical paperwork that was automated, our focus went to let's have conversations with parents and see what they need. Why are your children not in school? We went and did home visits because we were freed up of the other stuff. What does that mean fiscally? For my size district, every percentage of ADA is roughly $175,000. So if I increased it last year by 2 percentage points, How much did that generate in revenue? For a return on investment of $40,000, over $300,000. Okay, this year we're hitting 94, 95%. In 4 percentage points is almost $1 million, close to $1 million. So what's your return on investment? We got to be innovative. So sometimes people are like, oh, we're a small district. We don't need those systems. That's for big. No. What's good for kids, whether you're a big Alley Unified or a small Los Nietos, is good for kids. And we want to create that standard of excellence. But you got to move people along. And you have to make courageous decisions. So those are two of the major things that I think were some systemic challenges.
Final question. Doreen, how can we effectively integrate staff wellness initiatives into local school wellness policy to create a more holistic approach that benefits both educators and students while aligning with district goals and state priorities?
I would love to answer that because it's like it's a yes and to everything that you just said about that human power. So I'm thinking about school wellness committees, and for those of you who are at the district level who are working with school site champs, when you get someone that says, okay, yeah, I'll do that, people who volunteer, right? Usually people who volunteer to be a wellness lead at a school site, usually they care about wellness personally. It matters to them. And because it matters to them, they want to bring this work to their school site. So how do we create more of those folks? How do we make wellness matter to more people at our school site? So district leadership is incredibly important. And I think we have to, if you're going to come in and do some work at the district level, if you're coming from nutrition services, really thinking about what are the current district priorities so that you could articulate where the wellness policy implementation connects. Because I think that's really where we get stuck. It's the implementation. And when we think about like what Bailey shared when she was, going through the call to action and she was showing all of the different steps and this idea of, part of the really great tool, the triennial assessment template, walks folks through what is happening at the school sites. And that's usually where you get a lot of like, I don't think anything's happening at that school site, but that school site's doing great work because that champion is just pushing and pushing and pushing. So, I'm thinking about staff wellness, right? And giving people an opportunity to care for themselves, because everyone in education is a caregiver to others, regardless of what position you're in. You are taking care of others. And a lot of times we get I'm so busy, and they put themselves last. So how do we shift and show, no, you matter, your well-being matters. So it's not just the well-being of our students and our families, because guess what? You're also part of a family. You are, you're considered, a parent for another school down the street. Even though you work at this school, your kids are in the school system. So how do we kind of make more of the adults in the system feel like it matters for them too? So if you're not, we shared a little bit earlier about like our staff well-being funding that we're getting from Kaiser, and we're creating like a very systems approach to implementation. But everybody could pause and think about, what are we doing right now for students and families? Well, how can we extend that to our staff? Oh, wait, hold on. It's not that hard. Not at all. How do we include them? And how do we include them, but also how do we do just for them? So, when we shared the video of the pet therapy, we have a lot of in Orange County, we have Hope Dogs. How adorable is that name? These Hope Dogs come to school sites, and they're for students. Our crisis response network utilizes them a lot, especially when there is like a crisis at a school site or an event or something like that. They bring in but a lot of times it's not for the staff, right? It's for the students. And, as a staff member, it feels weird to be like, can I get a pet in? Because I'm distressed. That's very difficult. But this was for the staff. It was created in a space on campus dedicated for them to experience the pets, and they were able to come and go. And it wasn't in competition or in place or they didn't feel guilty that instead of a student, they were, playing with it anyway. So that's just an example. How could we take what we're currently doing for students and families and think about, let's extend to our colleagues on that school campus and all colleagues across the system.
Thank you. And I think we're out of time. That concludes our panel discussion for today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to the panel. I want to highlight a word that I heard, which was courageous. We all have to be courageous to be in this space. It is not easy year after year trying to make health and wellness a priority when there are so many other priorities for school districts. So we are thankful that the speakers are with us today to help us be courageous. And I want to thank all of the panelists for coming all this way. You did use a lot of acronyms, but otherwise it was really informative. But the collaboration, right? Like 2 different counties, 2 different districts, 3 different districts. I mean, just really making, and County Office of Ed, of course, making it happen for us, and we just appreciate that. It's important to hear others' journeys, right? Challenges and successes. So I think we want you to join us today and take those lessons learned, both successes, achievements, and challenges back with you today. Thank you for your willingness to share.